called, said Chester Owens passed away.
Oh, yeah, he did.
No
Passed
kidding.
away earlier today.
You did hear?
Yeah, he did.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
He didn't get the move, did he?
Yeah.
He did not. That's what they were prepping for. Okay, so you have two, which I don't know who they are, because one's just a Z and the other's an O.
Yeah, we got a couple coming up here.
Okay.
Police
Awful.
Hear you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay, everybody online, do you want to put your name up there or introduce yourself? Can you hear me?
I don't know. I think I hear you. I thought it was because I had it mute, but looks like working. Yep. Yep. Hello, can anyone online introduce themselves? Carrie? Let's see if I can unmute. Seems like she can hear us. She's given us her name, but let me see if otherwise. Well, I guess she has to heard it. She's put her
Did she
name.
answer with a message?
She answered me.
That's fine.
I don't know who the others are that should. Hold on, it's a
Mr.
good.
Chairman, this,
Yeah,
because this is.
I apologize, guys. I have some dogs that are acting extremely unruly right now in my house. I'm Carrie McCarthy. I'm a Kansas City, Kansas resident, just here to listen in on the workshop.
Anybody else?
it is, it's recorded.
I was just gonna say, Mr. Chairman, that because this is an instrumentality created by the UG, the Kansas Open Meetings Act requirements apply, and Kansas Open Record Act requirements apply as well. So COMA and CORA cover you guys.
Okay. We'll get started here. So we still have people online that we don't know.
Someone just joined with an iPhone. Ask them to unmute, but.
It's Cece Harlan.
Oh, I see.
Cece.
Okay, we don't have any committees for any updates, so we can skip over that.
You do,
We do?
before you do,
Mhm.
would you identify what committees are under this?
What committees?
Yeah.
We don't have any.
Don't have any at all?
No, that's why I knew there was no updates.
Oh, okay, great. You want on.
We had the one committee that was working on the,
Building permit?
the building permits, but that was dissolved after the commission passed the no fee permit ordinance a few months ago. So that was the only committee we had working at the time. Okay, like we discussed, we discussed the code enforcement. We had the presentation from the Greg talking and his people about how code enforcement works, and if you guys don't know, we picked from the city administrator surveys and things, target things that he was looking to address and things, and one of them was beautification of the city, cleaning the city up, which involved code enforcement and things like that. So when we discussed the code enforcement things, some of the questions we had is, well, how does things go through the process to get to code enforcement, and how do things come back from there as far as what was solved or whatever? So what happens when they call 311 and where does it go and different things? So it's kind of connected in that respect. And so that's why the best sources that go to the source. And so that's why I called you guys to ask if you would come up and discuss things. Testimony. This is Diana Whittington, Lisa Mayo. You guys have trouble getting up there?
Little bit, kind of place.
Oh, they didn't say to the wrong floor though. So if you guys want to go ahead and start, you kind of know what, before they start, try to hold your questions or comments until after they kind of give us a presentation, because they may answer your questions when they tell us things, and then we'll have time to ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and thank you guys for bringing us in and acknowledging as you're having these discussions to go to the source. I think that it just warms my heart, makes me feel really positive about this committee, because I think the hardest thing is to explain something without any of the facts. So I thank you for bringing me here today. And Omar, I'm the Director of Performance and Innovation, and 311 sits within my division and my department. Omar's the manager for the 311 division. So, Mr. Chairperson, we've created a presentation to show you today. Sometimes visuals are easier for us to talk to. We definitely have a lot of information to share. I've emailed the presentation to you, Irene, if you want to pull it up.
Didn't have that ready.
And I hope it meets the request today. We weren't really sure what to provide, so we just kind of looked at everything from a high level to give you an overall view of how 311 works, and how it doesn't work, maybe.
Oh, but I can't do it that way. Hold on. Because I got the people on the screen won't see it. I got it. Yeah. I don't know if, is this gonna be, oh,
Just want to go ahead and do the slideshow and start slideshow from the beginning.
there you go.
Yep.
There you go.
All right, so thanks again. I'm super excited to have a full room. Super glad everybody found where they were supposed to go, because we were right there with you. So do you want me to drive, or do you want to drive on me?
Yeah, you can,
Let's see how this
I
works.
think I might be able. Or you know what, I can do it from here, just tell me when to switch.
Do you want to go back?
I'm gonna try to figure this out.
Lose on back a slide for you.
Yeah, I wanna try to get this out of the way.
One more over.
Yep, and then I don't know where to put this. Should be up all the time, but is that okay?
I think it'll be okay. Oh, look at what it's on.
It usually is supposed to, but it won't do it down below.
We-
Okay, oh, you need to go back.
Back a slide.
Maybe I can.
Should be able to hover right down here and something should pop up, but I don't see that on your display screen.
It's right here. Now what happened?
There we go.
Again?
Yep, that's it, right there. All right, wonderful. So we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of 311, because 311 has not been around too terribly long, but the action center or call center idea has been within the UG for a while. So we'll do our best to explain it, although Omar and I are pretty recent to the department. We'll talk about data, statistics, and process. I think process is what I'm hearing you say, Chairperson, that you really want to talk about. And then talk a couple of minutes about what we're working on internally, strategically, to improve 311 and the customer service aspect. So we'll start with the evolution. We have had an action center, call taking center, something since the early 90s. And in fact, we have an employee who was in one of the very first action centers back in the 90s who has joined us back at 311. In the 2008-ish time range is when we transitioned from being a switchboard. You know, I always think of one ringy dingy, two ringy dingy. And we moved into more of a 311 call center where we were taking calls and then trying to do some kind of resolution. During the downturn in the economy, somewhere around between 2008 and a few years after, we had to downsize our 311 call center significantly. So staff was cut pretty significantly, and the technology that we used was cut pretty significantly. So that really impacted what we were doing. And around 2016, we got a free piece of technology that allowed us to start like gathering data. So when I put data up, you'll see some references back to 2016. But what is the most important aspect of the recent changes in 311 really are about leadership changes and destabilization of the 311 call center. So between 2019 and 2021, the longtime director of 311 separated, went to a different department. Around the same time, we had to pivot to handle COVID. So we were an in-house, in-person 311 call center, and we had to do a lot of pivot action in 2020 and 2021 without a director. So I say we, Omar was around, I was not around at that time. I was someplace else within the UG. In 2022, and this is a pretty crazy timeline, but in January, we had a new director named. At that time, it was me. So I was named the new director of the 311 call center, but the longtime manager left in August. At the same time in August, the division was removed outside of P&I, so where I was the director, and it resulted in, with the manager moving, that the 311 call center reported directly to an assistant county administrator. Then that assistant county administrator left around September, October, and the 311 call center, Omar, who was named acting manager at that time, was reporting directly to the county administrator. So this was a big change in our leadership and a big destabilization of the 311 call center. But much to Omar's credit, he held it together and kept the division going. In June of 2023, the division returned to P&I, so it was returned to my department. The acting manager was named the actual manager in 2023. And in September, we started an internal review of all of our processes. We know we have some problems. We know we can do better on customer service. We know we have some technology issues. Let's start really analyzing it to make a good decision, which I think is what you guys want to do here today as well. And then in December, we had a call taker separated. So we have, and I'll show you in a minute what our tree looks like, but we were down 2 positions. So that was pretty significant. In 2024, we decided to focus on stabilization. So we filled those positions so that we could stabilize and get the call volume handled in an appropriate way. And we expanded our internal review process to how do we interact with people like NRC? How do we interact with people like solid waste? And then we are planning on completing those reviews and moving into action, changing some of those items in 2025. That does not mean that we have not taken, I call it capping off the bleeders. We haven't taken some action as we're discovering some problems. So we've had some pretty significant leadership change. We've had some pretty significant changes in expectations. And so that's really impacted our ability to stop and really focus on how are we interacting with people, as well as a lot of the knowledge base left too. So this is our current structure. Omar sits here. I'm the director of that division, and he has 5 call takers under me. One of them is bilingual, so we can serve our Spanish-speaking community as well. Omar also helps out in that area, but all of our positions are filled now. We have a full staff, but there are only 5 of them. All right, so what happens when you call 311? I think one of the very first, and let me back up and say, I was the municipal court administrator for 5 years. So I routinely was taking phone calls from 311 or getting information from customers who had interacted with 311. So I've sat on that side of the fence as well. But what happens when you call 311 today? I think commonly what we hear most often is I call 311 and nobody picks up the phone. And so that's hard for us because we know we're picking up the phone all day long and we can see the calls come in. It wasn't until we actually started to dissect, because in our world, a complaint is actually a request. Hey, nobody's picking up the phone. That's a request to find out why. Why do we not think people are picking up the phone? And after we were able to get the call information, what calls are coming in, and then what do we actually touch? What we found out was 81% of those calls we never see. They never come to us. So when you call 311, you get a recording. Welcome to 311. This call can also be in Spanish, if you've all heard that call before. It gives you 4 options. 3 of those options are, do you want to talk to the treasury? Do you want to talk to courts? Do you want to talk to buildings and codes? If you do, press the corresponding number and those calls go off to the department. If you want to speak to a 311 agent, take another option or stay on the line and those calls come to us. Does that make sense? I was shocked when I saw this number. I assumed when you called 311, you were getting one of the 6 of us, but you're not.
No.
When you call that 311 call line, 81% of the time you're going someplace else. So when we hear things like 311 never answers the phone, we know by our data it's not here. It's got to be someplace else. Okay. So these numbers are a 16-month period that gives you kind of an idea of how many calls are coming in through that 311 call line in 2023 through April of 2024. So in total, we're looking at a little less than 500,000 phone calls in 16 months, and we pick up 76,000 of them in that time frame. Okay. So when these calls go to these organizations, they go to either centralized call takers. I think the Treasury has a call bank of staff that are setting and answering the phones. Knowing what happens in the court, I think the court still has call takers. I think that we still have people assigned over at NRC, but those calls go directly to their lines. Thank you.
Sorry,
No, you're doing good. You're keeping up with me. I'm trying not to talk too fast. So part 2, what happens? Okay, what happens to those 76,000 phone calls when they come in? The ones that go to the departments, we don't know. But we do know what we're responsible for, which are those calls that get to us. So how can those calls get to us? They get to us in 2 ways. And we call, well, actually 4 ways, but we call these 2 ways actively. The calls are actively getting to us. About 85% of the time, those calls are getting to us during normal business hours, 8 to 5, and they're coming in to the 311 call center via phone. When we get that phone call, we identify, ask questions. Can we have your address? What can I help you with today? We have a little bit of a script that we go through for customer service based on best practices. We document it in our CRM or our call management system. Tell name, do you want to identify yourself? What's your address? What are you calling about today? We have some drop downs that we work with. And then we either try to answer that call if we can, or we conclude that call by taking the information for another department, or we transfer that call to another department. So sometimes callers call, and I definitely do this. I will call an action center or a call line, and I'll say, I appreciate you trying to help me. I have a really complex problem. Please just send me to. So when that happens, we do that. If it's a call we can answer or a question we can answer, we do that. If it's something that we have to take the information and hand it off to the department, we do that too. So that's what happens up here in this block. If a person calls after hours, they call at 5:22, or they call at 6 o'clock in the morning. We have a vendor called Doppler who picks up that phone call in after hours or on the weekends or on holidays. So Doppler goes through a recording, you get a live agent. That agent then makes a determination whether or not this is an emergency. And when I say an emergency, it doesn't mean a police emergency. Obviously, those folks call 911. It's, hey, I think 4 cars just fell in the street. Or a tree is over and has landed on my neighbor's house. Or there's some kind of big traffic issue happening. That vendor identifies that and dispatches it directly to streets or public works. If it's not determined to be a public safety or a priority through public works, then it gets put into our dynamic system, and then Omar validates that call the next day, meaning he's looking at that call to make sure all the data that's entered is correct and that we've taken the action that we're supposed to do. So, but for the weekend, this is next day activity or immediate activity. So about 11% of our phone calls come in this way. 11% of the calls that we take, not the 500,000 over a 16-month period. Okay. There are 2 other ways that information or requests get to us. We call these passive. These are passive ways that citizens can interact with us. And this makes up, give or take, 2% of the number of calls that come in. So vast majority, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, they get to us. about 2.5%, 3% come in this way. And it is either through our Pay It app, my Wyco app. If you pay your car tags online, I pay them through the app. There's a 311 action button. You can press that 311 action button, report something, take pictures, those come to us. Or it's an email. So anywhere on the website, there's an email that's called info@wykokck.org. People can email us and Omar will pick those tickets up in real time. So the turnaround time or the turn time on these events, on the Pay It side, we do not get those until the next morning. So when we get those the next morning, Omar or the lead call taker immediately enter them into the CRM and respond back to the department if it needs to go to the department, or we put a ticket in so that the next department can see it or pick it up. So the turnaround time on this is overnight. The turnaround time on this one, we answer these emails as they come in. But if you email on a Saturday afternoon, we're going to get it on Monday morning and then process it. So far, so good. That all makes sense process wise.
Could I ask you a quick question about it? Just, well, on the email, when it sends an email, does that send an email to the complainant if the email was included as well?
No. No, it does not. Most of those calls and, whoa. Can you click one more time and see what happens?
Oh, did you do you did?
Yeah, try again. Yeah, I didn't mean to, but that's what it did.
I
wasn't doing that.
It's just a progressive kind of thing.
Panicked me for a minute because I was not going to be able to memorize those numbers. I could get you about there. So it does not send an email back. Most of those are really items where they're saying, hey, I want to report that. And we're pushing that out to the department. So if we can respond back to them, but we're not going to be able to tell them anything. If they have a tree down in their neighborhood, we're sending that out. If they have a mowing complaint, we're sending that out to the department to resolve. Okay. All right, so annual phone calls, and again, these are the ones we get, not all the calls that go to dial 311. These are the ones that get to us. Remember, I said we launched a way to track back in 2016. So we didn't do that until April. So that's a little crazy year. It's a little odd year. And then we had 2 really big years where we're up in the 65,000 range of telephone calls that we're answering. We took a little dip right here around COVID. We haven't found out a direct correlation to why. We have some ideas, but none that we would want to share because they're just, they're just anecdotal on our behalf. Then we went back up to 57,000 calls in 2022. And this year we are on target to be our largest year. Now we think we know why that might be the case. We helped with a senior rebate program where we pulled off calls for senior rebates from the clerk's office and we handled those. We also know that we had some bad storms. So there are many things that happen in here, but that kind of gives you an idea of how many calls we're actually picking up per year. Oh, you got task?
Yeah, promotion.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll be writing down exactly how you're doing and tell her when she gets back. Okay. So most frequently asked questions that we get in 311. And I'm getting all these statistics because we do have, although a flawed free system, it still gives us a lot of data to analyze. So we want to know who are our biggest customers. We think we know, but what are people calling most about? Number one, all day, every day, is my trash didn't get picked up. All day, every day, right? My trash didn't get picked up, and or I have a bulky item that needs to be picked up. With these calls, we are documenting them in the system. We are saying this is a trash pickup call, and Waste Management has access into our dynamic systems and can see those calls. Waste Management is the vendor. They have access into our system. But also solid waste, the UG department has access to see it. So if you call and say, Mr. Scott, if you call and say my trash day was Monday and it is now Wednesday and nobody has picked up my trash, we have a script. We can say, hey, did you remember to put it out before 7? All the things. And if you say, yes, I put it out at 7 o'clock. Yes, it's been sitting there. I didn't drag it back in. Yes, my neighbors got picked up and mine didn't. We're going to take as much information as you will give us, and we're going to put it in our system so Waste Management and Solid Waste can pick it up to remediate. Now, if we're lucky, even before action happens, the Waste Management truck made another circle. Sometimes we know something was delayed, and we can pass that on to the customer based on where they're at in the map. So if we know your trash was delayed because of a holiday, or there was a horrible storm, or it was 100 degrees outside, and we get that communication, we can share that. But I would say we're getting that communication probably 10% of the time. We love when we get it, but we don't get it always. The next group is just general service requests. This is, I just need a general answer. What time is the UG office open? Are you guys open on Memorial Day? Are, just general questions. And those are about 20%. I would also put in there that senior citizen rebate program because we did a lot of work around that program for a couple of months. We also had a nice little spike in BPU calls this year because of the stormwater rate changes. And I don't know if you guys notice on your BPU bill, it says call 311 for questions.
You got answers?
No. No, it says call the UG if you have questions. We can say, well, we can get you over to BPU, but we don't know anything about your bill. We're not BPU. We can't help you. So sorry. But if you're telling me you got a service interruption and it's creating a public safety issue, we can take action. But if you're wanting to get your services set up, or you're wanting to turn them off, or you got a rental property, again, we're marking that in our system so we know we talked to you, but then we got to send it off to the right person. Let's see, the next group would be streets and public works. Obviously, we get a lot of calls around storms, around potholes. We put those into our dynamic system, or we send the call directly to Public Works and Streets. Streets, correct me if I'm wrong, contracts also with Doppler, that third-party vendor, and they actually do some dispatching through Doppler. So we get the call over to them and then they take it. What's interesting to me always when I look at this is this group of people right here. If you'll remember that slide I showed about 2 slides ago, when you call, you can say, I want to talk to somebody at the Treasury, but instead of pressing that button, sometimes they'll just stay on the line and talk to us. And so sometimes we can help them. Most of the time, if it's questions about, is the Treasury open? I heard they were closed on Wednesdays. If it's basic questions, we can answer, but most of the time we're sending these folks right back to the departments. Or in some cases, if you can look yourself, like sometimes if we know that you can look yourself online and you can find your own, we're going to try to guide you to self-service. We're still going to transfer you, but we're going to show you how you can find it on your own so you don't have to call us back. And we always say, not that we don't want you to call us, but we want to make sure you know you have access to this information. Yes, ma'am.
A quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the calls for UG charges,
Yes.
how do you handle those?
When you're talking about UG charges, you're talking about these down here.
So it'd be.
Utility billing,
Utility. So,
but they're not utility, they're UG charges. stormwater overflow.
yep.
The pilot. So we have a water pollution office and they help us with those questions because they have access to the figures. So I believe it is Nicole and water pollution that helps out with those specific questions.
I think that's stormwater.
Mhm.
Are you talking specifically about charges on your BPU bill that are related to pilot or are related to stormwater?
I'm talking about the UG charges, and then also as a separate category, the stormwater.
Okay,
So, they're 2 separate billings,
yeah,
but they will all say call the UG or.
and you are exactly right. We had a change in how stormwater was being billed. And we had wonderful communication from Public Works. The stormwater rate is changing. This is what the new bills are going to look like when they come in the mail. Because we did have some people that called and thought they got fraudulent bills. This is what the bill is going to look like. This is when it changes. This is the script. If they need more information than that, send them here. And so we did get a lot of information on wastewater. When the wastewater changed into January, beginning of February. When the pilot questions come, we don't have a whole lot of information to add other than here's what's the published version on the website of what the pilot is. But we can't manage billing questions like how do you pay that? Why is it this amount? How can I resolve it? Why is it on my bill? With that regard, we can either get them an answer off the website that's published about what the pilot is, or if they have a question about how to pay it, or my utility is going to get shut off because I don't want to pay it, then we get them over to BPU. It's not a great solution.
I'm not asking my question directly. So on that, let's talk about the stormwater
Mhm.
for the lots that you have. vacant
Yes.
Lots.
Yep.
So if I call and I say I have a question about a billing, then I was sent to Public Works, to the engineering department.
Okay.
And so is that how those calls are handled for regular bank?
It depends, like if you want to talk about billing, that's gonna be EPU because they're the people that take the money. But if you have an issue, like say you want to contest it, you want to appeal it, then you will have to contact water pollution.
Which is why you got sent to Public Works.
I didn't know we was asking questions. I was trying to
Yeah.
make sure everything was open.
No, I appreciate that.
And I'm here, getting here late.
Can we hold off on the question?
Well, see, that's what I'm trying to say.
And I think
We're get started.
these are really good
Plus,
questions.
got questions.
And I think that's the thing that I like Logan. So I started my career in, that's I know Soptic. I started my career in justice administration. And in justice administration, one of the core tenets is to be able to interview people and ask good questions. It's called motivational interviewing. So that's the piece about 311 that most excites me, not only helping customers, but being able to help call takers learn how to ask questions. Because sometimes what we say and what we want might not convert easily. So my trash didn't get picked up. There's a series of about 20 questions we could ask there to help get you resolved or get you to the right place. Billing, are you calling about how to pay the bill? Or do you want to contest the bill? Do you want to ask questions about why it is the way it is? Do you want to talk to a commissioner because you're unhappy with it? There are a series of questions that we have to ask. Unfortunately, the difficult part that our call takers get into is we cannot answer all the questions. And I'm glad you said, let's wait until the end, because I want to talk to you about our identity as a call center and what makes it really difficult and why I think people ultimately don't always get satisfaction in calling us. Because you can tell us, but I might not be able to resolve the problem for you. So we'll go, oh, you almost missed me. I'm gonna tell her.
You didn't tell me you was ready.
Okay. I'm gonna tell her when she gets back.
You will tell me?
Did it go?
Gotcha.
All right, cool. All right, so here's what I think our strengths are, because anytime we're doing an analysis, I'm looking at the strengths and the weaknesses. And so how can we fill the gap in between? Our people are amazing, 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 amazing. The average employment tenure of our employees is 17.5 years with the UG. I have people that have been here for 30 years who remember when it was an action center back in the 90s. My newest employee has been here for a couple of months, but everybody else is 12 to 17 years and up, including myself and almost at his 7-year anniversary or just after. So our people are our greatest strength. It is one of the lowest paying jobs in the UG, and we expect them to know everybody else's job. Okay, so here you are, you've been in the UG. We expect you to know how to get a pothole filled, how to answer questions about bills, how to get a court date, how to deal with suspended licenses, how to deal with a 911 call if you get it on by mistake. We expect them to know everybody else's job. And it makes it very, very difficult to always get consistency. So that is one of our gaps. We have great people who have a lot of knowledge and a lot of access to knowledge, but they can't know everything. So how do we bridge that gap? We are 24/7. We haven't been 24/7 always, but we are now. So that's a great benefit. The fact that 311 is now in performance and innovation, which is in technology, is a benefit because we have built-in business analysis, but we also have access to lots of technology. We have access to understanding technology better and how to use it. Now, I say this by saying, I don't think everything is fixed by technology. Matter of fact, technology is just a complement to common sense. So technology is great, but we have to know how to analyze to get the technology to do what we want it to do. And that's part of what we do in that department. We have really good access to call taker performance data, and I'll show you an example of that. So we can see who's on the phone, how long they're on the phone, how many calls they get picked up, how many calls they drop, how many calls are on wait, how long they're on wait for. So really good performance data that Omar can analyze and coach his team on. And then we also record every single call that comes in. This is really important because that gives us an ability to go back and review not only how the call taker could do better, but what actually happened during the call and then chart any activity that's happened at that address. How many times is that person called? Is this a common problem at that address, even though 2 or 3 people have lived there? Like, does the trash not get picked up on that dead end street no matter who lives there? Can we track that? So we have this wealth of information we're sitting on that we're just getting, here's that gap again. We're just getting to the place where we know how to share it with the departments. So it's not just person called, this happened, then this happened. It's person called. How many times have they called in the last 6 months? Have they always called about the same thing? How can we get that to the solid waste team to say, clearly there's a problem on this street with your vendor picking up trash? And so learning how to share that information is one of our gaps that we need to fill. But the fact that we record all those calls, super important. And we're community responsive. We have those bilingual call takers, and we can provide critical support to UG departments and to citizens in a pinch. There's a massive snowstorm. We've got street plows out. How can we help communicate to citizens? So we're a great asset there. So here's an example of how this is national report from last week. It's on one call taker for 5 days. It gives us every action that's happened. So I'm going to walk around to this side for a minute. So it tells us how long they were logged in for every day, how much time they were unavailable. And the first thing that I said when I looked at this is, this employee is not taking their lunch. They have an hour lunch and they're only taking 46 minutes or 37 minutes. So, and they're not taking breaks. This is how many calls they handled in a day. And, bless them. These are where people come in and they're amazing. I can't imagine answering the phone 53 times in a day, but they do. How many outbound calls they handled on an average time frame? 2 minutes, 3 minutes. How long did it take them to handle that call? And most importantly, I look at this. How many calls were put on hold? Because again, another complaint that we hear is, I got put on hold for 2 hours. This is how many calls got put on hold, and this is the average number of seconds they were on hold. Those are for my calls in our house that we take care of. So this call taker, on average, what is that, about 32%, 32 seconds that somebody was put on hold? Can you hold, please? Let me get you over to the right department. Let me get the number, click, we're transferred. How many holds? And then this tells us how many calls they could not pick up because they had too many call queues, too many calls in the queue, and it rolled over to another call taker. And then this tells us what their percent of work rate is. So 1 is 100%, that's an A+. 99.94%, that's still a doggone good percentage for that week. Every week I look at this report, and Omar does too, for every call taker, all 5 of them. Every week, they look like this. 30 seconds on hold, 50 to 80 calls a day. Average time is 2.3 minutes. They're not rolling over very many, and they're almost at 100% every week. So what does the numbers really tell us? 311 call center handles less than 20% of every time somebody calls 311. So we're only getting 20% of the calls. 21 seconds is the average hold time that we keep somebody on hold. And that's usually a transfer. 11% of the calls are placed after or before business hours. So 11% of the time somebody's trying to get a hold of us after hours. And 30% of the calls are related to trash service. So those are just the facts. But when we look at this, if our call center was fully staffed every day of the year, and if our call center was open on holidays, meaning we made our employees work every holiday, and we handled the 2023 number of calls, then our call takers have an average of 2.38 minutes for each call. Private sector best practice is 6 to 8 minutes. So we don't have time to hang out and have a discussion. We're trying to be super efficient and get those calls handled. However, sometimes we need to take longer, and we do. So sometimes we might be on the phone for 30 minutes with a caller because they need extra help. Omar, you just told me a story today about a caller who called you about and was having trouble, and you were able to get them to resolution. Can you remember what you told me earlier today? I'll put you on the spot.
Blank.
I put you on the spot. So many times the calls are coming in and they're just wanting some kind of additional assistance. I don't know how to do this. And we might not know either. But we'll put them on hold for a couple of seconds. We'll call the department. Are you the right department? We don't always get it right, but sometimes we spend a lot of extra time trying to get the caller to the right spot. Didn't mean to start. So we have lots of positive things we've talked about and lots of information about what the facts are and the data is. But where are our weaknesses, right? Obviously, we're not perfect because otherwise we'd have 100% on our customer satisfaction rating when, Mr. Chairperson, you guys were looking at that. So in the past year or so, in the times that we've had together, because I was again in the department for a few months and then out and then back in, we've been able to identify some really good strengths and some really good opportunities that we could take advantage of. But we also know where our problems are at. Our software is old, it's free, it doesn't get updated, and it could crash at any minute. If that happens, we're at critical failure. So we have to look at what it looks like to have that complementary software. But we also take a bunch of softwares because we are trying to go on the cheap. And we rubber band all those softwares together, and then they don't work. You're smiling because you know something about this. Sometimes Department X, Department Y, and Department W all want their own ticketing system. They all want their own thing. And then we get stuck in the middle. So we try to rubber band. I don't know if you heard the word Acela or Lucity or any of those other softwares, but we try to rubber band them together and we expect them to work all the time. So I say something, you know it, you say something, I know it. When you rubber band them together like that, inevitably they break. Or you have to have some really well-paid people to keep them running because we all want to do our own thing. So we've rubber banded these systems together and it creates this difficulty to get information back and forth. One of the other weaknesses we have is we are not able to get information back to the customer. So Paul, you call and say, my trash didn't get picked up. I say, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's really frustrating. I ask you my series of questions. Did you put it out before 7? Was it on the right side or the left side of the street? Did your neighbors get picked up? Was it the whole block or just you? Exactly what is the address? Has this happened before? I ask you all the questions. You call back on Friday and you say, hey, I called you on Monday. My trash is still out here. It's really stinky. What are you going to do for me? And I can say, sir, I can take your information again and pass it along. But I can't dispatch a truck. I can't tell you whether or not waste management is on your street. I can't tell you whether or not they're going to be there tomorrow. All I can do is take your information. So 30% of the time, that's where we're at with our customers. It is incredibly frustrating for our call staff because they want to. Omar has even volunteered to go to somebody's house and pick their trash up for them. And I have said, that's not a good idea. You may not do that. We need to call solid waste. We don't have any place to put those callers if they are in a moment of being upset. We can only take their information and maybe every once in a while we'll get a little note that says issue was addressed. But then Paul calls me back and he says, I don't care what your computer says. This trash is still sitting out here. And I say, I'm so sorry. I put this in. I'll put it as a third call this time. I'm so sorry. I'll take your information. And so we feel one of our weaknesses is that we're hamstrung in being able to actually get the resolution to the client or the customer. And so that's very frustrating. And that creates a lot of hostile situations for our call takers where we've had to listen to some phone calls that are really rough and really tough for our call takers to handle. I think every name in the book you can imagine, you get your people to get over here and you take care of it, or I'm going to come to you and I am going to you. And so that's really hard for our call takers. But one of our weaknesses as an organization is we don't have that closed loop. Budget cuts this year definitely will restrict our ability to go out and find that complementary software or to look at more call takers so that we can spread that time out, because if we want to spend more time with our callers, we're going to have more people. Public perception about 311 is a hill we got to climb. But ultimately, it all kind of boils down to us for identity. What are we supposed to be? Because we can be kind of one of three things. We can be a one-stop shop where a citizen calls and we can handle anything they need. Kind of like that action center concept. We can lodge their request. We can assign the work ticket out to the street department. We get real-time information back about what the street department is doing. We get all the information. The caller calls us back, or we can call the caller back, or we can send a text alert, or we can send an email that says, this is what's happening on your ticket. You can call me for anything. We can get you a resolution. It's opening a case, closing a case, kind of like probation. We're opening a case, we're closing a case. There's a start and a finish to it. Or we could be tiered support. So we could be tiered support where we say we can resolve most questions that you call and ask me. I can still put in a work ticket, but I need to get it out to a subject matter expert to resolve it. And so I can be tiered support for you. I can answer these things. This question, I have to have some place to send it to, but I still got a work ticket. And the public works department or the street department can close that ticket. And if you call me back, I'm going to know exactly what happened. Or we can be a transfer service. Thanks for calling. Who do you want to talk to? You want to talk to Treasury? Okay, Treasury. Thanks for calling. You need a court date? Here's the court. Right now, we're treated like all three of these things. And we have an identity crisis because different departments have different expectations of us. Some just transfer the call. Don't talk to them, just transfer them. Some, you have to answer these questions, but then send them to me if it gets difficult. And some, we don't give you any information. You can't transfer the call, just lodge it and we'll pick it up and take care of it. So to us, this is our core item we need to resolve for before we can start building out what solutions are. Okay, I think that's the last slide, but you want to double check me? That's it.
Okay, go back to that slide.
Yeah, can you,
What?
no, you didn't. I didn't even know how to do it.
Can we ask questions now?
That's up to your chairperson.
Chairperson, can we ask questions now?
Yeah, I have one question about that, since I get to ask first. What is your desire for this solution here? What works best for you?
I think for the customer, what works best for us is this tiered support. So that we know we can start a work ticket, we can send it out to the NRC. I think that was the first group you mentioned. We can start that work ticket, we can send it to the NRC. The NRC is going to work it, but we can see it. And maybe trash is the best way to explain it.
Yeah, that's one of the things that that we had all talked about in comparison with the action center, what 311 is now.
Right.
So you do get that closed circle.
That's right. And to be able to say, I mean, the technology is pretty impressive. And Doppler, the vendor that we use in the evening for overnight coverage, actually has a technology where when the citizen calls in and says, this is what I'm going to say, they say, would you like me to send you a text link? And potentially that could be where they could follow the case.
Are they local or where are they?
Well, Doppler is not, they have a local representation.
They're in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, Kansas City, Missouri. The office that we deal with is in Kansas City, Missouri, but I think they're a national organization.
That's all.
What, the office you deal with is where?
Doppler in
Doppler.
Kansas City, Missouri.
Why when we call 311, I'm getting somebody from the West Coast?
They have action centers all over the country.
Okay,
And that is one of the difficult parts about the Doppler Center, like in the evening, right? Because you're not getting what we offer during the day, which is somebody who lives in your neighborhood and understands your issues.
correct.
Yeah, if you call it.
Well, I'm gonna talk to somebody in the West Coast and they gonna ask me where 13th and Cornell at. Then they wanna know what's the building across. And
Yeah.
then I'm looking like, well, if you call 311, you should know where this is at.
And at night, we pay on average $3.38 every time someone calls at night. That's our contractual
Okay.
rate.
What about 2 o'clock in the evening?
Oh, 2 o'clock in the evening, you're getting one of us.
No, I'm not. I'm getting West Coast.
Huh. Tell me more about that.
Okay, and then I asked her, young lady, why are you catching the phone? Why the city, why are we not? Well, they overloaded. I said, that don't make any sense.
Okay,
I says, well, tell me where you're located. What difference does it make? I suppose I'm trying to understand this
yeah,
311 system.
me too. So tell me a little bit about how you got to that. You dialed 311
311.
and you waited for a call taker.
There you go.
Okay.
And she told me she was not located. And I said, let me speak to your supervisor.
Yeah,
I said, where are you located? Sir, we can't tell you that. I said, why is it a secret?
okay.
So to me, that means that their 311 didn't catch up.
I would like to investigate that a little bit. Do you remember when you called?
Well,
You said 2 in the evening, you mean 2 a.m.?
come again?
2 in the evening, you mean 2 a.m.?
2
PM.
p.m.
Yeah,
2 p.m.
okay. If
No
you,
one called the phone from the city. And you probably don't remember me, young man. I talked to you on the phone. One time I called, first words came out was Spanish. And I said, why is Spanish speaking on the phone before we can get English? And this is the English speaking city. And I talked to you, you said we made a mistake and you changed it. But I couldn't understand why Spanish was speaking on the phone before I even started speaking English.
okay, well, I think we can address that issue separately because that sounds like maybe a performance issue that was a situation that you understand a little bit more about.
Okay.
So I'm not sure, is that a focus of today's conversation?
We're trying to get to all of it.
Okay,
Now, I stay on the border of Kansas City, Missouri.
Mhm.
When I call 311, I get Missouri.
How close
I
are-
get Kansas.
yeah, how close are you?
Right on, well, right down 7th Street,
Okay,
7th parallel, but I don't get 311 call. And I think that this contract, now, they gave me little information. I think the city paid them $25,000. That sound right?
we pay our Doppler contract $22,000.
$22,000. To me, that's a waste
I'm
of,
sorry.
Is that plus the calls, the $3 for the?
No, that's if you take 22,000 and divide it by the number of calls. We get about 6,500 calls after hours.
So we pay by call?
No, we pay by contract, but that's the usage after hours. We don't ever get more than about 6,500
so who
after hours.
wrote that contract with them?
That contract was in place before I got on board. Because remember back to the beginning slide?
Okay, I wasn't here. I got here late.
Okay.
And I was looking for Ben. I don't see him nowhere. Where's he at?
He's downstairs working,
Well,
answering. calls.
he was the main one we were supposed to have up here. He was requested to be at this meeting.
I don't recall getting that request.
Who's asked for the request for them to come down, for you to come here?
I didn't get that request.
Well, I had asked for 3 meetings. Ben, we wanted Ben here because he could explain more to this than anybody else. Ben's good at what he do.
He is.
And he
He's
should
very
be-
valuable.
He should be the one leading this whole thing. But I
Well,
just,
That's
I,
a great
I,
compliment to him.
I think that,
This is
This-
straight into personnel matters.
Yeah,
Yeah, this,
yeah,
How about this?
we're
focus
getting
on
off the topic here.
And
What-
not.
okay, well, I'm saying, I think that the 311 calling. I don't think that the one we paying this money for, I think it's a waste of money.
Okay.
We can hire a dispatcher to do this
Okay,
because, and who cut it off so we couldn't talk to the trash people? Why can't we call Bomb and talk to him ourselves?
you'd
We
have to
cannot-
ask the solid waste team that.
Well, that was done by Fisher, Jeff Fisher. He stopped that. Because he said
I'm not aware of
they
that.
was having too many complaints from us as community calling. So we can't call Bomb and say, hey, you didn't get my trash. So we have to go through you and it still doesn't get done. I mean, to me, if it takes 3 to 5 weeks and you still don't get the trash up, I mean, I'm reporting tires and everything else. Nobody's coming by to get them. So I don't think that when you go to code enforcement, I don't think they get the message. They get the message, they'll respond back to us after we made the complaint.
I can't speak what code enforcement does once they get it. I'm not an expert on their projects or how they handle
Why can't
it.
we go straight to code enforcement instead of coming through 3-1?
You know, if that's what the chairperson recommends, then
You can,
can.
yeah,
you can call code enforcement. That's what, if you didn't see the first slide was most of the calls, when you call in, you can
Boys.
request what departments you want to go to. So a lot of the 311 calls are not going to 311 to be answered. They're being sent. 81% are going to one of these other places. 18% is going to 311. Which, you know, those are all valid things that have been brought up. But what we want to be able to do is what we've asked, a lot of things to be done is what she said, is to be able to close the circle, to make a recommendation that helps to get that answered. So when you call 311, you do get a response back. And that is the only way these other departments that 311 transfers things to are going to be accountable. And that is I took note when you said, you call and you have somebody on hold for 20 minutes or for 20 seconds on an average. That's on your end.
Only this many.
But I mean, that's on your end. You don't
I
know,
don't know what happens.
you don't know when that other connection is made, how long they're on hold. So
Right, so if I transfer them,
so-
you're right.
so you're getting the pushback because you transfer someone to code enforcement, they may be on hold for 20 minutes there.
Right.
Which that does happen because I've had that situation happen before where I've called and been transferred to a department here and be put on hold again. And then it's not 311 I'm on hold with, it's wherever these 81%.
Right. And from my experience here working in municipal court, if something's going down in the courtroom and I've got to pull all my staff to go into the courtroom and I leave one person picking up the phone calls, all of these calls are trying to roll to that one person and you might be on hold for a while. But you're absolutely right, Chairperson Beth. I don't know what happens after I transfer.
Yeah, the 20 seconds is a pretty short time to be on hold for.
And I was impressed with that when I got to
Yeah.
311 and could pull that statistic and watch them. I think that's the most important thing. I can stand behind them and watch them take the calls. And they say, hold on, just let me get that number for you. Do you mind holding a second? Let me get that number. And so I was pretty impressed with that.
You go back to the slide where you were talking about best practices, what would you like to see?
Oh, all the way to the end, ma'am. Okay. I'm sorry I made that slide like that. Takes too long to get through, doesn't it? Oh, right there, that one.
Yeah, so you said you prefer the tiered support entry point.
I do.
Why over the one-stop shop, it would allow, both of those would allow for the feedback loop, right?
Yep.
Okay, why your preference for that one?
I think this one is a gold standard top tier, very, very expensive. So if I'm looking as a citizen, I'm not sure I want to pay for that level. I mean, we're talking about a multi-million-dollar investment.
And the cost of it,
Would be much less. I would still obviously need to look at some additional staffing, but I can't look at the operational pieces until I know what I am. So if I was this, I couldn't do it with 2 minutes and 38 seconds on the phone. That average number of time that I can be on the phone with them, 2 minutes and 38 seconds. I'm gonna need 6 to 8 minutes per call minimum.
because you're going to the subject matter expert.
Right, I'm
And
going
you
to.
would stay on the line.
I'd stay on the line with them. We would have more conversation. There would be more kind of tiered support. I'm reading a script saying, hey, are you asking this? Are you asking this? Can I help you with that? And we're doing some more diagnosis than what we can do here.
But that also would give you the customer access to being able to go back in the system and look up their work ticket.
Yeah, ultimately,
And then be
yes,
able to get feedback from the other
by themselves, maybe.
for that information.
Yeah, a lot of cities have something like this where the citizen can actually go in and check the status of their ticket.
You said you also would need different software to achieve
Yes,
that,
I would.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever done a cost analysis on?
You know, here's my viewpoint on cost analysis. I look for what I need. Let me see if I can explain this because this is very different than most department heads. I don't like going to conferences and seeing shiny things. Okay. I like to know what I need and what my constituents need. And then I go out and say, vendors, you tell me how much this would cost. That way I am not getting promises of a beautiful product that I'm maybe not able to give my customers exactly what they need. So I say, what do we need? What's my grocery list look like? And then I go to the grocery store instead of the grocery store comes to my house and says, here's what you need.
So the transfer service,
Mhm.
essentially what you kind of have now.
Yeah, we kind of have a little bit of all of this, but this is kind of the one ringy dingy, let me transfer. So about 20% of our phone calls are this transfer service,
But the rest of the 80% are falling where we need the information back.
but we're missing this part.
100% we're missing that.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
missing the ticketing part, the ticketing system. We're missing the assignment piece. The big miss is we don't know what happened after we got the call notated and maybe Public Works or Water Pole or somebody picks the ticket up. And it's overly complicated because some of the departments require this. So if I call 311 and I want to know what's going on with my trash ticket, I should have the expectation that I can also call and ask what's going on with my NRC ticket, Neighborhood Resource Center ticket. But because some departments require this, we're completely blind to what's going on here.
The one hand doesn't know what the other one's doing, because
Well, I would.
it passes out of your hands and.
It passes out of my hands and we don't know. And I would say that, best intentions, pave the road to someplace. So everything has been a good intention. I've never met anybody that was trying to be, obstinate to the citizen. But like rubber banding stuff together, those rubber bands break and people change. And I had a good relationship with somebody over here and I knew we could talk every day. And then this person retires and we lose that relationship. When you depend on those types of interactions to have quality customer service, you're never going to get consistency.
So with that situation, if you were able to get the software and the additional personnel, how long would it take you to take it up to that next level?
To here or here?
Where, well, you want the interim.
I want this one.
I'd love to have the one
Yeah.
stop shop.
I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars.
I
Millions and
understand
millions.
that, but I'm just saying, how long of a period of time would it take to make that transition? And would you have buy-in from all of the departments that you would need to work with?
There's the question that needs to come first. Would I have buy-in? And saw our change in leadership. Departments have also had change in leadership. So being able to have one view that's coming from the citizens, this is what we want, instead of, we just want good customer service, but we don't know where it fits, I think would really help get everybody on the same page. I talked a little bit about one of the weaknesses being how customers view 311, but it's also how departments view 311.
And a nuisance.
Oh, like a nuisance, or they're in our business, departments can view it, you're in our business. I'm trying to do the work. I don't need to be reporting out to you too. So I think
Is that part of a culture issue then?
I do think we're trying to do our own business and we're trying to grow up as an organization. And I'm no knock on the employees that have been there because they've done a doggone good job holding it together. But I think departments have some distrust with the 311 process. So if I'm a department head and I think I have it under control, like the treasury, I don't necessarily want my customers to have to come to you and get a ticket logged every time.
Is that the problem with the peer support too? Or
This one here, I wouldn't necessarily say, I'm gonna speak a little out of turn here. I don't think it's departments. I don't think as an organization, we know what 311 should be. So if I'm a department head and I don't know what 311 is supposed to be, I don't know what my direction is.
no, I mean the feedback. I mean the feedback part.
Oh, well, they don't have a system to put it in. Yeah,
You have a question?
Oh, actually, I just have a comment. First of all, I think you're looking at it and trying to eat an elephant when
I know.
you be taking the bite.
yeah,
When we look at this, I'm thinking you're trying to solve. You're data mining, first of all, you're trying to grab all this information. We're looking at 311. When I call 311, all I want to know is what did they do with the information? So if you just send a text back to me saying, hey, this got forwarded to, that I think that right there would make a better
experience,
experience
Yeah.
or view for the
citizen,
people,
yeah,
citizens.
gotcha.
They would see that 311 is doing something. Right now, you don't have any kind of feedback to them. If you say, hey, text, your issue has been forwarded to as even if you forward it to them and transfer them to that department, you send them a text, say, hey, your issue, for instance, my wife just called the other day, 311, streetlight, okay? They said, we don't, handle streetlights, you need to contact BPU. That was great. That got settled like that,
Mhm.
just because you was able to tell us where to go. Before, we would call you and we'll wait, never hear anything. Streetlights, same thing. Now you say, call the tier, that works to me,
Mhm.
that works. But I don't think you should worry about what the other departments are doing. You want to take care of 311, you want to take care of your section, you know?
Yeah, well, thank you for that feedback.
Well, can I piggyback a little bit on what Gary's saying? So the black hole that a lot of people experience is what you're talking about.
Correct.
It's what leads to the frustration and to the anger that you sometimes generate. So how do you have, do you have any way to measure the responsiveness? I mean, that seems to be the big key, the responsiveness of not the 20% that you deal with, but the 80% that you don't. You have no conversations in between those departments with 311 about how they resolved the percentage. Say, for example, we resolved 90% of the calls that were sent to us by 311.
Well, I think it's interesting because I'm getting a little bit of a mixed message, which is be in your own business and go get in everybody else's.
Well, no,
So-
we're a unit here. So this
Yeah.
is why I think there's a level of frustration in the community is that the government, 311 is just part of the unified.
That's right.
government,
Yep.
Okay, so when we call in 311, we're also asking for services or response to a need, okay? But if you have no feedback, number one, okay, and then you're internally, there's no feedback per se, then how do you know what you're doing is effective beyond the fact that you took a phone call and recorded a conversation?
I'm not sure how to answer that question. We definitely meet with department heads. We definitely have discussions about how we can serve them better. One of the examples I gave was the senior rebate. The clerk's office needed some help. They were getting slammed with phone calls.
Well, that's when they need you.
Where I said, can we help you? But I think that's because we built a relationship with them like we try to with all departments.
Mhm.
We try to meet with those departments and especially those big ones like solid waste, public works, those departments we deal with phone calls a lot. And we say, hey, how are you doing? Is everything doing all right? They definitely have information at hand because a lot of them have access into our dynamic system so they can see everything that we can see. So we do try to build those relationships. But I think what I'm hearing you say is how do you know what they're doing and how do you know if they're being responsive to their customers? I think that's what I was
To
doing.
the same customer.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I
that's what
can't-
I'm saying. And you know,
I can't answer that.
that's a chain of events that has to occur to resolve that particular issue for that individual. Or that
When I think then
customer.
when we're talking about that, yeah,
I'm just asking, do you even have that a little bit now?
I would say that we have relationships with departments and we have definitely different departments want us to handle it differently. So Treasury's probably not going to be interested in telling me how they resolve all their telephone calls because,
No, not that how they resolved it, but that they did resolve it.
or that they did. I'm sorry, I should have.
So the
said it
percentage
differently.
feedback back to you, back to your department would be that we sent all those different destinations that you have there,
Mhm.
court system, whatever it may be. And you sent, say, 100 calls
That would be the idea, that would be the ideal thing to do.
to get
If you
a
get
return
that.
back to you.
Yeah.
That we were able to resolve 95% of those.
And that would be great if
That's what
we,
you're looking for.
yes, that's what I'm looking for.
I think the feedback is the key. I mean, when.
Absolutely.
All nine
Yeah.
or 311, we have an expectation that we're taking care of.
Right, we live in a,
So if
Yeah.
a note coming back to us saying your call has been passed on to water pollution or whoever, sewer, whoever, okay, 311 has now done their job. My
gotcha.
issue is not with 311, it is now with.
Exactly.
And that sounds like it would go a lot toward that customer, perception. Thank you
Yes,
for
exactly.
perception. Yeah.
Like what, kind of what Gary said would be the stopgap of the cheap way to do it right now was just, you know,
Text.
when you calls, text, call back, whatever, say your issue was referred to water pollution control if you had a question.
Simple courtesy.
Because you put that already in the computer, right?
way.
Yes.
You already put that in the computer, you already got the phone number.
Because one of the
Just
things
put
is,
saying in.
How would you guys, what is an idea that you have about how in technology we could respond back? What did I say? We're on target for 60,000 phone calls this year to be able to send 60,000 texts out.
Get robocalls.
that's a
all
great
the time.
question.
Yeah, that's a great
So
question.
that is not. I don't think it's that difficult.
Well, and that's what I'm asking. Maybe I'm looking at it
You
huge.
just said that you already for.
Right.
And they're typing and you're putting stuff in, right? You already have a phone number there, right? When you get through doing that, send.
How, so that's what I'm asking for. If I've got the cell phone number in my hand, how do what's an idea that you have about being able to then text that number? Is it a technology? Is it, we should just be pulling out our phones and texting back?
No.
No, so help me understand.
That's not, okay, maybe
The questions that you're asking to each customer that comes in,
that goes.
that could be at
area,
the
so
bottom of that,
that's that.
that completion of the process. When you hang up,
Mhm.
there's another portion of it that sends a text back or call back to that person that your issue has been sent on to.
So maybe I'm
It'll be
asking,
resolved.
I'm asking more pragmatically. What is I'm looking for ideas about pragmatically, how do we do that?
Well, I don't know your system, so I couldn't tell you.
I will tell you, the dynamic system we have right now is free and very old. It does not text anything.
Okay, and see. there-
Yeah, doesn't text it.
Issue.
And that doesn't work if they call from a house phone too.
Right.
Right.
So you would have to know what kind of phone they call from.
Assuming everybody has a cell phone.
It will not email. It's legitimately, it's kind of one or two steps above just taking notes in Word.
When we use a few $1 million for some new software. When you make a call, when you take a call from someone and they have an issue,
Uh-huh.
do you? Like if I call you in my issues with, again, stormwater.
Right.
Water pollution, whatever we're calling them. Do you send that to them while we're on the phone with
Yes.
you?
Yes.
Yes.
So, okay, I've sent your issue to water pollution. You have your resolution.
Or-
Okay, there's your feedback.
And
So
do you
now
sign it?
I know my call has been through 311 and it's made its way to water pollution. I no longer have an issue.
With-
That's what we're talking
we
about.
no longer have an issue with-
How hard is that to say,
Okay.
Brandon,
So,
Brandon,
maybe
just say, we got your call and, yeah, and say, okay, we're referring your call to wherever you refer it to. So if you have any questions, call them directly.
So maybe it's
Then-
down in that statement at the conclusion of the call.
You have a claim number associated with that call you make to the.
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah.
Well, then that claim number is gonna be at the other department. Well, or
Yes.
internal.
Well, in some cases, in some of those cases. So in some of those cases, when we are, let's go back to the types of calls. All right. In some of those cases, we're always making a ticket, but some of the departments, if we're talking about the treasury's not necessarily going to be able to see this. But if we're talking about our big four, they can see this. As can waste management, the trash collection company.
Okay,
I think she was next.
everybody's, so is it better to, like, if somebody calls in and then they get a work ticket on a complaint and so forth like that, can we call back in and can we say, this is my work complaint number? Because
Absolutely.
I've done that and you guys did a great job
Thank you.
and I got my trash can. Everything was resolved because of that. But which way is faster can I do that with email as well? If I email?
Yeah.
But the way that I have found that they handle the complaints a little bit better only was when I called on and got a work ticket number.
Because we can tie it.
Right.
So for
They
example,
tie
tie it
in
together.
that.
So that should be
Now,
automatic.
now, if we called treasury or if we called the other departments, could we give them the work ticket number? Or it doesn't really matter because it just goes into oblivious.
It just depends on what department. If you call solid waste or you call stormwater or you call a department that sees into our system. Yeah, you can give them a work ticket number, they can find it.
And then they can keep going on that work ticket.
There is a limitation. I think we've got 500 characters in this beautiful software we have. We have 500 characters, so we have to be really judicious in what we put in there, but yeah, they can see it.
But the customer, will they get that work ticket number when they call?
We could provide it. Maybe that's an idea I'm hearing is saying, here's your ticket number.
I said, I want a work ticket.
Yep.
number. They Gave it to me and then
So that should be automatic from here on out.
Yeah.
So the,
Well, and I think that direction, if I'm doing this the right way, that direction would be a recommendation from the chairperson, who then our chain of command could say, that's what I want us to
The
do.
work ticket number only comes
When
from,
I've called several times and have no. resolution.
Absolutely.
So see that
Absolutely.
feedback and that as well. You'd save, but have your calls.
Well, and so let me just put this out here. 30% of our phone calls are trash collection. So we might get the same person that has to call us 4 weeks in a row.
Mhm.
And we can say, yes, we see that you called. Here's your ticket number. We could give them the ticket number. We've lodged this with Waste Management. The vendor can see it. Solid Waste can see it. We don't see any other updates. I'm not sure at that point legitimately, if you called me now the 5th time, if me just saying I passed that information along in that circumstance, other circumstances, I think it might be really good. But in that circumstance, I can tell you, I filed a ticket with the Waste Management Company. But that's all I got.
I can tell you that you probably need to contact your commissioner with your issue.
Right. We have at times
Yeah. I mean,
flirted with that idea, but remember, we also have bosses that might tell us we can or cannot do that.
I understand it. You know, I still call Waste Management today if I have an issue. And they pretty much take care of it.
That's great.
And I think a lot of the issues, as far as goes to trash collection, are that people aren't aware of the limits as well. I have
Absolutely.
neighbors that put out
Yes.
7 cans.
Yeah,
Now, if
absolutely.
you ran Waste Management, how the heck did you plan to run a garbage truck through a neighborhood where you're only supposed to have 2 cans? And everything's supposed to be bagged, and you get 60-70% of your home. You said you're only supposed to have 2 cans.
Yeah.
You live in Johnson County? No, it's on the actual website.
Yeah, I mean, and we go through that script. So one of the things we've tried to do, and I'm being cognizant of the time here. 'cause it's
Yeah,
5:30.
we need to wrap this up.
So I think one of the things we have done that has helped is
Gary
we have
said it.
we've gone to Waste Management. We've said, can you spell out for us what we should be asking the customer? You have a mattress that needs to be picked up. It hasn't been picked up. Why could it have not been picked up? Did you wrap it? Did you put more stuff with it? So we have gone to Waste Management and developed a script, and that to some degree has helped. But at the end of the day, there are so many different factors that lead into why someone's trash didn't get picked up that we wouldn't even presume to know. We wouldn't even presume to know. Was it hot? Did they have drivers walk off? I mean, it's a vendor that's handling the trash collection, not us. And so that is really hard.
Well, that's why it goes to the commissioner. Now it's a major issue.
All right.
Well, I have one more question. Only in Wyandotte County, the trash company uses a vendor. No other states do they use a vendor. Isn't that correct?
No, that's not correct.
That's not correct.
No,
Okay,
You mean a contract trash?
no.
yeah.
Oh, many other jurisdictions use contracted trash companies.
Yeah.
Many.
And some communities can choose between different.
That's right.
For complaints and stuff like that, we're the only ones that use a contractor for complaints.
No, I don't think that's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
all right.
I think Waste Management would be able, like, I've gotten the best explanation from Waste Management about all the complicating factors that make Wyandotte County a little unique, that we have unlimited trash pickup, that we have to use old trucks, that they can't use new technology. I mean, they would be the best source of information there. But many jurisdictions use an external contractor.
We have one of the best contracts for trash.
Right.
pickup.
I think so. Yes, we do.
well, we're gonna lose that in 25.
Are we?
Yes, even though they fail sometimes, we have one of the best contracts for what they'll pick up.
2030.
Are they changing that contract?
When you-
8 more years to go on that contract.
No, well, we're having trouble with that contract now.
Only because-
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question.
Well, let me see what time it is.
I'm gonna walk in something, you go.
Oh, you are? I think I'm going back to my office to finish my work for the day.
We could take a little bit of.
You honestly think this outside service.
Because Linville neighborhood.
Well, I think that it depends on how you look at it. I don't know.
But
That has
you can
about
see-
30 or 40 numbers.
Somebody, do the wise.
I think that one.
Call it.
I'm gonna leave it here for the-
Thank you.
Okay.
So you got a plan.
So what's gonna happen?
Call this number.
That we were required to cut 10% out of the budget. So I have $121,000 in my budget that's not foreseen. So if I'm cutting 10%, I've got to cut $20,000. That has an impact to 11%. They want to call it nice to get service.
Well,
Thank you.
I can tell.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for-
I appreciate it. Yes.
And
I'm not sure how to do this for her.
They go.
Yeah. Okay.
Do not shut down.
He said just leave.
Okay.
If you have recommendations or whatever you want to send, I mean, just
I appreciate that.
send it to me and
Yeah.
as far as what you learned.
Yeah, we're a little unique circumstance that, we haven't shared this information yet with my boss's boss. So being able to share it with you guys first is great, but being able to,
Great, yeah.
thank you, I appreciate
There's
that.
a lot of things. that-
Great.
It's good that you guys are. Well, it's the word. Yeah, and even some recommendations, and that's what if he sends me something that we can add in there. Like as far as given work number.
Gotcha.
That we can add in.
Yeah. This is one of the hardest jobs in the UG, because these poor call takers have been here 27 years. They get their lives threatened on a regular basis.
Well, what I thought was good
It
is your flex,
You.
the flexibility of the question. You could do.
No, no, no.
You got to do it.
Thank you very much.
So.
Are you
Fine.
Are you related to the Sprague family here?
Mhm.
John Sprague?
John, I don't know. It's Paul and Kevin and Tom and Pam.
Yeah. Okay, where are you at in the,
I am married in, I'm Paul's wife.
oh, you're Paul's wife?
Yeah.
Okay, the Amayos.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Tell him
I will. I'll tell him tonight.
So rest of the go get. Unless you go.
A little bit ahead.
I was wondering.
As long as you put the fix it.
good with what?
So we've been.
Put pizza box, pizza box, pizza box. In what? In the same trash. Container. They will not pick it up. They will not pick up the whole. I didn't know that. Yeah. They say you can't put a pizza box in the thing. Yeah.
We got it.
They don't have food in there.
There's a tree.
No.
There's a tree. There's a 10-foot long. 10-foot long, this big, and it's a wedge.
I was saying the contract.
One of these days.
Yeah, we want 25. So waste management got the new contract? We did.
They've been for a year.
I should get that log. I won't know nobody working.
And the thing, they want, if they should pick up, they want to pick up just certain things. There's only 2 trash cans of egg. No, anything in different, put out there from them. But see, they're coming by picking these, they don't want to. And leave the whole thing. Right inside. Yeah. Leave.
What area?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
do you go to the store once?
And if you waited 2 minutes,
I did not.
that is. all.
Because waste management has 2 minutes on that.
And that's just.
Okay.
What does that mean, you know?
In the one code, event.
Let me ask you this now, we're supposed to get together, me and you and.
Yeah, that's another conversation. Yeah. Okay. We left out here with one question. Most questions are still not being answered.
Not with the current.
You kept saying.
Lady that was sitting right there.
Yeah.
But a lot of times.
Get that bit off.
Oh, okay. And she left.
Get more.
Landline, so you can't text.
But anyway, as we walk out, I feel.
Over, so.
No, I called back.
November.
Oh, Mario.
September, October.
Yeah, I would love to, and 700,000 phone calls a
Like,
year.
Texas.
I would love to have some on.
On 30 days.
She's in.
November.
Let me know. How many of us are there?
That's going to Japan, 1 and 2.
Great. I'm breaking down.
All right, Doc. Good to see you, man. All right, next week. All right. All right.
Yes, but if you. It's a two, man. That's why
Briefly,
and, because there's a lot of those calls.
You'll be quick and you have to break.
I think that when we call in, we should hear nothing about the employees, nothing. Or about what's the first thing there, or the treasury.
Okay, next one.
Messages, we call in, so we have to hear about employees on.
I took that off. No, I took that off already.
You took that?
I took that one off.
Thank you.
I think I talked to you on the phone and you said, could you take that off? And you know what I did?
Took it off.
Yeah.
Thank you. You
Yes.
know, I complain, but I complain
No,
if they think
it
I'm
was-
wrong.
We needed it for that little period of time because every employee was getting impacted by this workday employment. Like you couldn't fire me. 2,500 people. It's a- Yeah,